Hello and welcome back on my YouTube channel, Parth Doshi, Learning by Doing. So today in this video, we have another industry expert with us, Sean. So first of all, welcome Sean on my YouTube channel and thank you for accepting the invitation and also a big congratulations to you on becoming the MVP. So congratulations for that as well.
Thank you so much, Bart. It's an honor for me to be here. It's actually a privilege to be a part of your channel.
You're welcome, Sean. Okay. So why don't we start with a small introduction about you to the audience who are watching the video?
Okay, let's do that. So, hi everyone. My name is Sean. I'm a UiPath Most Valuable Professional. So currently, I'm the Principal RPA Solutions Architect, the total experience. So I have about 8 years experience in the IT industry and 5 years plus experience in RPA itself. So
Amazing.
over the years, I have actually encountered or worked on a lot of projects. Hence, I would like to share with you all what are the RPA get rights, what are the things that we need to look out for, and what are the items that we also should avoid.
Right, right. So, yeah, thank you for your amazing introduction, Sean. Okay, so our today's topic is going to be so Sean is going to share his knowledge on how an organization can start their successful RPA journey or what might lead to the failure. So, we are going to have a combined discussion on both the topics side by side simultaneously, and Sean is going to share his knowledge through his past experience on starting the RPA journey, developing the projects and automation projects and all that. Okay. So, Sean, let's start with that.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is when we talk about RPA itself, right now you actually have a lot of RPA platforms available, right?
Right,
So of course, but there are other platforms in the market. There are, let's say, you actually, when you see Gartner, Leader Quadrant, you actually see a lot of them there.
right.
So I would suggest we when you start your RPA journey, you
Hmm.
look at those reviews as well. Let's say there is also a review from IT Central, where you can identify, let's say, some of the points that you are that will make your organization successful not only today but in the future. So that means you need to cater
Right,
for scalability.
right,
You also need to cater for ease of use as well. So typically, an RPA platform, you're actually not working on just one task. Sometimes there is a transactional task. That
right,
means you need to have a queuing mechanism.
right,
You have to also consider, of course, the current budget that you have. Of course, different RPA platforms, they have different pricing. So you may have to ask, let's say, or work with multiple vendors first to check
right,
or get, let's say, what is the pricing of this? Is this fit beyond my budget?
right,
But but when we talk about budget, let's not focus too much on what you can afford only. Maybe there are RPA platforms that can allow you to start small, but will
right,
also allow you to scale up. So those are some of the considerations. I'm not digging deep into the technology here because
right,
definitely to talk about technology itself, it is already out there. You know,
right,
when you talk about RPA platforms, what can it do? So it can record web browsers.
right,
It can scrape data from various applications and platforms.
right,
You can perform string manipulation, data manipulation.
right,
You have are available. Oh, maybe another thing is you also need to consider the platform if it actually have a built-in, let's say, free OCR tools as well,
right.
because there are some that will actually have OCR tools, but you're limited to some functionality because they don't have deep integration with the
Hmm.
OCR technology as well.
So choosing
And
the tool initially not only depends on the current use case that are to be automated, but also from a future perspective that more what additions can come or more what scalability or the features can come into that RPA tool, right?
that is ideal because you have to look outside the box also. If, let's say,
Right,
for example, your use is just to extract data from a web browser and put
right,
it in an Excel file,
right.
all RPA platforms can. But
Hmm.
what if suddenly you would need to let's say extract data from multiple invoices, for scanned invoices,
Right.
you need to consider if your RPA platform will have integration to that, or they will actually have their own platform itself
Right.
to be able to work on that. For example, UiPath. UiPath has
Document
their own
understanding.
document,
Right.
so who created their own let's say UiPath OCR
OCR,
engine.
UiPath document OCR. Right.
So there are a lot. There are actually a lot of factors that you have to consider,
Right.
not only specific use case that you have.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Right.
Mhm. Besides that, of course, we need to consider also uh, right now, if you only have one robot or two robots,
Hmm,
how will it work? You may want to let multiple robots work on the same tasks and so on.
hmm.
You also need to consider security in terms of where will you be storing the credentials. Let's say if you have assets and such. So
Right.
you need to cater into those factors. And typically, when you start your as a customer, I mean, I'm putting myself in the customer's position. By just doing the research alone, it may not be that 100% accurate. So you need to talk to multiple vendors. You need to talk to
Right.
the system platform providers as well, and get their insights, get their confirmation. Their platform is able to do this
Right.
as well. First, maybe the roadmap. You need to understand the roadmap of the platform itself.
Right.
How
So one question that I'm having, like till now, what you have explained is, so here we are saying that when starting the digital transformation or the RPA journey, there is technical as well as non-technical and business assessment, everything is done. So is there a dedicated team within some organization who looks into all this while choosing the RPA tool, or how does it happen like in any of the organization if we want to understand that particular thing?
So typically, when a project is going to be started, let's say an organization will assign, let's say, a team or a dedicated project owner. So
Okay.
this project typically do his own research.
Right.
He works with he works with multiple vendors, talks to multiple let's say platform
Right.
providers. And what
Mm-hmm.
happens is the provider will actually give them, let's say, the roadmap, will provide a quotation, will provide them the necessary information that he would require to
Right.
get to know the more. And of course, you can also request for POCs or proof of concepts
Right.
from this platform to see if it is really able to perform the necessary functions that you're looking for
Whether it
or
serves the
looking at.
business purpose of automation or not.
Yeah, definitely. So you need to check if the platform will be able to solve your problem.
Right.
But like what I said, when you do a like what is typically happening is you don't look into the use case that you have now. You just
Right.
consider also some in the future. Of course, you cannot consider that, or you should not consider that if the technology is not yet there, but you want that technology to happen or to come, the platform is already able to get to that.
Mhm.
Because if that is how you would look into it, then it's possible that you will not be able to select an RPA platform. That is why you also
Right.
need to look at the roadmap.
Right. Right. So the feasibility study, the roadmap of that particular tool has also needs to be taken into consideration. Yeah. So we were talking about how we should also see that what is the roadmap of that particular tool in the coming next few months.
Yeah. So typically the platform vendors will have that. Maybe you can also get, let's say, the for the next year as
Right.
well, they have those things.
Right. Right. Also, like you said that how many robots will be required, how many tasks needs to be run. So that utilization also needs to be done very precisely. I think if there are two robot license being purchased, then how effectively that can be used to perform the automations that we have. So that complete scenario also needs to be looked into before buying a tool.
Yeah. So I think I was not able to answer fully your question earlier. Is there a specific group in the
Right.
organization?
Right.
So so normally you have the process owners. So process
Mm-hmm.
owners are actually or they are the ones who's actually owning the project. They should
Okay.
work together,
Uh-huh.
team, to be able to assess this, because we
Okay.
know that some process owners, they are mostly familiar with business processes. They are
Right.
not that tech. That is why they would need some help from their IT team or their infrastructure team, which
Right.
actually later discussing as well as part of the get rights in our in starting our RPA journey.
Right. Right. So it becomes a collective work of each skill set, people, technical, non-technical, business, infrastructure, to leading to a successful RPA journey.
Yes, that is correct.
Right. Right. Okay. Anything?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so actually another get rights that we can consider, of
Mm-hmm.
course, would be have selected the process. So you
Right.
have your RP platform already. You have selected it. You're planning to procure the licenses. You're talking on multiple contracts with the vendor and such. What is the next thing? Of course, you need to identify the right process. So
Right.
if but you don't have any process, then you're actually just wasting your time or your money as well. Because when we talk about RPA, it is actually a process-based project. I can say that
Right.
it is more of let's say a business project than an IT project itself. Of course, I am not saying that the IT team doesn't have a say in it. IT team needs to
Mm.
work with the business teams here, but
Right.
technically about RPA, it is from the term itself, robotic process automation.
Right. Right.
Uh,
So process identification becomes very crucial when after choosing the tool. Like the company should, after buying the license, they should not spend their much time or resources on such a process that is not feasible for a automation solution.
That is true, especially if you're just starting the RPA journey. Because
Right.
if you select a complex process at the very start
Right.
of the project, or let's say, what will happen is your let's say your project may get delayed. I mean, of course, we're considering here that the project is just starting,
Right.
so we need to consider that the excuse me,
Yeah. No problem.
that the project processes are actually let's say achievable maybe a
Right.
short period.
Right.
So that will actually allow, let's say, the senior management to take a look into it and maybe allow you to invest more in the project
Right.
also.
Right.
So technically, you're identifying the process, or so technically you should have, let's say, what we call the process identification stage, where you
Right.
actually try to collate some ideas. If nobody is willing to provide you, you actually have to find the processes in the organization.
Right.
You tell them that you ask, you do process discovery sessions initially,
Right.
and then you assess, is this
Right.
feasible for
So
and how
in
you
that
assess.
assessment part that you are talking about, does there where the ROI factor come in?
It depends, because when you talk about ROI, right, so
Mhm.
it can be based on money, it can be based on financial gains, it
Okay.
can also be accuracy, increase accuracy, increase efficiency. So
Right.
other there are what we call the tangible benefits and intangible benefits. Those that you cannot actually count and those that you can count.
Right.
So initially, I mean, it is case to case. It is based on organization to organization.
Okay.
Some what they do is, let's say, the process is not too big, but what
Right.
is happening presently, they have a lot of backlogs. So
Right.
let's say what they do is they just implement the process just to be able to clear the backlog,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually backlog has been cleared, the robot will actually be running for them, let's say within just 20 minutes per day, and so.
Right.
So it actually depends on how the organization looks into it. But when we identify the first few processes, it is ideal that we consider the low-hanging fruits. Of course, the simple
Mm-hmm.
and of course the ones that will not have that much of that I mean the ones that will not have that much of a timeline and will have a great
Right.
impact on the
Right.
organization.
Also, what
This
I
will,
feel is like when we were talking about ROI, it is like we should also consider the fact that the time that we are investing in developing that particular automation, in testing and all that, that much benefits the organization should also gain. So if there is some process that which is going to run once in a month and is only saving 1 or 2 hours, so if any such kind of process is automated, it is not worth investing that much of time. So what are our views on that particular point?
So it it actually depends on how the management looks into it. So from my experience, some customers they would want to automate a 2 hour process per month
Mm-hmm.
just because they have enough resource to do it. So that 2 hours will actually save them and allow them to focus on, say,
Okay.
customer facing roles.
Okay. So this
Another
kind of factor depends on organization to organization, you are saying.
Yes, it is definitely organization to organization. But let's say, for example, these 2 hours that they are doing,
Mm.
if it is actually if it actually will cause them a lot of inaccuracies if they're doing it manually, but when the robot implements it,
Right.
this it will be 100% accurate. Let's
Right.
say, for example, you will not notice that much, but considering that the increased inaccuracy is there,
Right.
you're actually so replicating this ROI in terms of the you don't need to redo or you don't need to repeat the process as well because you know that the robot is able to do it or complete it uh,
Right.
without without any
Human
wrong
intervention. Yeah.
without uh, failing the next steps.
Right.
So there is no such so I mean you will not be able we're not able to say always that okay this is a 1 hour process or a 2 hour process.
Right.
uh, so it also depends on how it will impact, let's
The
say, the organization.
organization. Right. Right.
Mhm.
Right. Right. Now I got a different perspective of that thing as well.
And
There.
the identification all goods.
Right. So the process identification, discovery, and assessment part is done till now.
Yeah, okay. So what? So yeah. So then I'll start with the next one after.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, Sean.
Okay. So upon identifying the right process, of course we need to map out this process correctly.
Right.
So typically you need to work with the process owners.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say as a process and solution architect, you need to work with the process owners to determine the steps. And of
Right.
course, we have to consider that process owners may have gotten the process from their ancestors as well. Like the previous process owner, this has been passed by another process owner also.
Right.
Wherein some of them may actually not ask how being done this way.
Mm-hmm.
Why not this? Why not this approach? So
Right.
we can consider that the process discovery session can be also another to take or identify if there are points to improve in the process. So
Right.
because sometimes when process owners actually provide you, they only share it based on what was taught to them, but they are
Mm.
not considering that okay, it can be done differently, it's this way, and so on. And typically, when they share their process, they will always make you feel that their process is very easy.
Right.
But sometimes also, uh, because you're doing it every day, you're doing it
Mm-hmm.
consistently, constantly, what not to do, what to do. They will not be able to share with you the exceptional scenario. So let's also focus on the exceptional cases. We need to
Right.
identify that prior to the development.
Right.
And of course, considering you're mapping out the process, you need to identify the prerequisites of these processes. Where is the, let's say, the upstream and downstream of this process? Where is
Mm-hmm.
it coming from? What is what? What are the applications involved? Let's say for these applications involved, what are the accesses or rights that you need to have?
Right.
Let's say what are the available? And you need to plan that as well.
Got it.
And of course, assuming you're going to start development or assuming you're going to you have selected the process, you're going to start the project soon, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
So during the process analysis, also you need to have, as an organization, you need to have a onboarding prerequisites plan. So that means
Okay.
we should not assume that when you install the platform, it is easy. Some organizations have security considerations that they need to follow.
Right.
There are
Right.
some whitelistings procedure that have to be done.
Right.
That needs to be provided provision. There
Right.
are applications that needs to
Some
be set up,
application,
and so
some application, some database restrictions might be there, or something might not be accessible. So that also things comes into consideration.
definitely. So we should always consider that.
Right.
An experience was, let's say we consider that we are ready. We thought that okay, so we are good to go. We talked to the process owners,
Right.
but then it seems that there are additional prerequisites that were missed.
Hmm.
So this is something that will actually delay the project also. So we need
Right.
to consider.
Right. Right.
And of course, one thing I was supposed to mention before this, I was planning to say that we need to consider, let's say who are the stakeholders involved. So I was telling earlier, we need to consider that RPA is a process or a business project. So the stakeholder for the project is actually the process owner,
Hmm.
but we need to work together also with the IT team itself. So
Right.
this goes, it should not, one should not be considered as less required than the other,
Hmm.
because let's say at the end of the day, who even though I'm the process owner, I'm the application owner, who is going to grant that access? Who is going to set up the machines, the laptop? Who is going to
Right.
whitelist a certain ports that you are requiring? So you need to work with both process owners and IT owners,
Right.
IT project process team as well.
Right. Right. So
And,
everyone
uh,
plays a important role throughout the automation journey.
that is it. That is correct. You got it spot on. So it cannot because I'm the process owner. I should own this project. There should be not it should not be considered as a competition. The success of the project will be both of IT and of course the process owners
Right.
itself.
Right. So the all the roles are dependent. The developer does not develop until he has the clear requirements. It is not deployed until IT has the machine set up. So everything is dependent on each other.
That is correct. So the developer itself, of course, he will not develop unless the process is there as well. So,
Right.
but also this like to tackle this because I would actually like to talk about the implementation approach. So, of course, when you're starting the project, you should consider that there is implementation approach that your organization would be following. So, meaning, what is the delivery methodology that you would be taking? Is it going to be waterfall or agile? But I'm
Okay.
not going to dig deep this too. But let's consider that when you're actually going to work on the project itself,
Mm-hmm.
one consider be that you always ensure that the process owners or the process team members are actually you're working with them most of the time. So let's
Right.
say you have checkpoints, you have let's say possibly a daily stand up or a weekly meeting also
Right.
for them
Right.
to because this comes with the methodology itself. Let's say for example if you're using agile in the
Mm-hmm.
project,
Right.
uh, you you can actually let's say fail early to recover early as well, rather than
Right.
if you say you're doing or if you're taking careful and then you finish something and then you realize that oh this is not correct. So these are some
Right.
of the considerations.
Right.
And yeah, regard to let's say do you need full
Right.
requirements before you develop that would depend on technology that you would be taking as well. Because let's say for if you're going to take an agile approach, so
Right.
I'm not an agile expert. I just have some understanding. So definitely, agile experts are open to comment and share their thoughts if my understanding is correct or wrong also. But But basically, what we need to consider is if you
Right.
have just enough requirement for that specific would be
Hmm.
taking, I think that should be enough. That should be okay to start the development also.
Right.
And when we identify the implementation approach, we also need to consider that RPA project is very much different from other technology. Like what I meant, I think I mentioned the word process more than 10 times already. So when you're, as let's say, as an RPA developer, if you tell me or you teach me what the process would be,
Hmm.
I will try to learn it from start to end. I will try to identify what are the inputs, what are the outputs that
Right.
I need to consider. But
Right.
suddenly, if you're going to pull me out of the project and then bring in another developer to do it, that means, let's say, that means I need to transfer this knowledge to that person.
Right.
And then he needs to learn all of those information. So consider, let's say, if you're going to take me out for 2 days or 3 days just to work on another project, for example, and
Hmm.
then this developer will do this for 3 days, and then
Again, you
you
have to
want me to
take
come
it.
back to.
Right.
So yeah, that it will actually increase the timeline drastically, and it will actually make cause some delays as well. So these are actually some considerations when we talk about RPA. Though that is but ideally and
Right.
hopefully actually a constant person in that project. Of course, it is not always the case. We will you'll not be able to ensure that every time, but that is the ideal scenario.
Right.
Mhm. And of course, I think I've tackled a lot of items as well. When
Hmm.
it comes to the after you've selected the implementation approach,
Right.
don't new joiner or a new RPA developer in the project to do it alone. That is definitely a no, 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 no. So what happens is if you do that, uh, they might get lost. They might get uh, shocked, or they would feel that okay, so what am I going to do? How do I do this and such? Because I mean, I think you can confirm this also when we started as an RPA developer, right? Of course, you would need to have some guidance. I'll
Yeah.
say there are definitely some items
Definitely.
that you get familiar with and such. So
Right.
even though a very good training model that has been provided by these RPA platforms or RPA organizations, of course, somebody has experienced that they shouldn't be done this way, they should be done that way,
Right.
and so on.
Right.
So that is something that we need to
Right.
always
And in development as well, some of the best practices should need to be followed, so that even if when I'm like you said, I have to give the project to someone else who is developing, so if there is a common best practice or design practice being followed, then it makes it much more easier, because the other person also knows easily what are the inputs, how is the process being built, and has a clear understanding of that as well.
Yep, that is correct.
Right.
So I mean, practice plays a major role also, and of course, we need to document also these items
Right.
as well. Let's say annotations, those logs, we need to provide it as well, so that any new developer who will be working on that project will be able to understand the project easily.
Right. 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 Amazing.
So
Amazing.
I would like to add on is when we talked about the RPA platform, right?
Right.
Let's also consider that there is a big community that is backing it up. So let's say if there is a forum like a UiPath forum, right? I mean,
Right.
practically when you're going to ask a questions, a lot of people are very much excited to answer. So
I have seen that. I have many times seen the question is posted just a minute back, and there are already 4 or 5 answers on that in forum.
yes, and most of the time I see you answering also.
Right, right, right.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that
So
helps a lot. So if, because I know that if there is a community who I can reach out to for some help for development, technical, non-technical, anything as such, then I'm quite a bit relaxed as well, that I know if I'm going to stuck somewhere, there is a one single place where I can find solution to that. So that particular thing helps a lot.
It really do help a lot, and of course it gives, like what you mentioned, it gives you also the confidence that if, let's say, if I am stuck somewhere out there, somebody may have answered this. So I think that is something to consider also.
Right, right. Okay, Sean, I think you have shared a lot of knowledge from your experience and from your the things that you have done in past as a RP developer. I think all that IT experience along with the RP has come out today, and I think we have covered a wide range of topics, not only from technical, non-technical development and organization perspective as well. So I would like to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And before we end the video, would you like to give any suggestion or tips to the audience who have watched this video?
So most probably the audience that watch this video are actually just starting or trying to plan their RPA journey. So my suggestion is learn from the mistakes of others as much as possible. So if you're in this video, that means you're considering what to avoid. So there are lots of also there are lots of write-ups. There are lots of documents as well that will help you to be able to know what are the items that you should consider. So you don't need to make the same mistake as others did. That is why actually this video is also being created by Part. Is for you to be able to plan out your
Right,
RPA fully. And of course, always continue to innovate. So whatever you're starting now, it is just the tip of the iceberg. So RPA is actually going to continue to grow, not only, and then eventually it will become hyper automation, and it's starting to become hyper automation already. And so consider not only the processes that you have now, consider also the processes that you might have 1 year or 2 years down the line. Of
right.
course, I mean, if you select an RPA tool now, it doesn't stop you from growing also. So that's why the roadmap is there.
Yes,
So I think that is all from my side right now. Definitely, we'll be collaborating. I think I have a lot to say also
definitely,
for on
definitely.
others. So
Okay, Sean, thank you so much for making this video again. Thank you so much.
thank you, Part. Like what I said, it's a privilege to be a part of your channel. A few years back, or a few months back, when you actually started,
Right.
I kept the very first ones and so on. I didn't consider that part of this, so it's an honor, and I'm happy to see that you have a bigger number of subscribers. Your channel is growing. You're helping a lot of people.
Thank you
That
so
is one
much,
thing
Sean.
I can. So yeah, keep doing whatever you're doing it
Definitely,
properly. You're doing it correctly.
definitely, definitely.
And,
Thank you so
yeah,
much, Sean. Thank you.
as you said, learn by
Okay, okay, Sean. Thank you. Goodbye.